So hello everyone and welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA and the first webinar of your orientation. Again, Countdown to VISTA Service. Your VISTA service is a year-long commitment, and this period before you start service is meant to provide you with the opportunity to learn about VISTA service and your benefits, as well as to really ensure that this is the right fit for you. My name is Chris Hawks, and I'm joined by Barbara Reynolds. We will be your host today from VISTA headquarters in Washington, D.C., where Barbara is still a bit mourning the loss of the Ravens the other day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You will also see, yeah, you could hear Barbara in the back. Oh, jeez. You'll also see our AmeriCorps VISTA colleagues, Brittany Madison and Khadijah Carr, in the chat and Q&A, as well as our partners at LSI, Kim and Steve, assisting with any technical issues. We certainly love seeing all your comments in the pre-session chats, and we know this is an exciting time where you're gearing up for VISTA service, and we're looking forward to working with you today and in the next webinar next Tuesday.
Great. Hi, everybody. This is Barbara. I do want to say a shout out to a VISTA that indicated that that's a good dog, bro, in the chat box. That is a good dog. Paloma is a very good dog. So in these few short minutes, you've learned quite a number of important things about your host today. One, I live in Baltimore, and two, Chris has a gorgeous Ameri dog that you're seeing on the screen. So welcome. And as Chris did, I also want to add my overall welcome to you to the VISTA program, and really thank you for joining VISTA, and thank you for making time today to be on today's webinar. I really hope that this VISTA year for you is going to be wonderful and challenging. I hope that you're going to get a lot out of it, and I'm very much looking forward to helping you get started today. So here's our agenda for what Chris and I are going to talk through over the next hour or so. We're going to start out with just some brief introductions and an overview of the VISTA program. Hopefully this will be a review, but definitely some important stuff about all of our work together. Then we'll jump into some of the important details of your specific VISTA orientation, including some of the major tasks that we're going to ask you to complete when you arrive at your project site next week. We'll take a close look at some of the benefits that VISTA members received and try to answer as many questions as we can today within our time limit about those benefits. We know how important those are to you. And then we're going to wrap up today with a quick reminder of some of the useful resources for you, and then wrap up with asking for some feedback on how our presentation went. So that is our agenda. As we go through this agenda with you, we have a few objectives for today's presentation. First and foremost, we've asked you to take your time and to log on with us today to give our staff a chance to connect with you, to personally connect with you as much as we can through the interwebs, and really to help ease you into your service year. We know this webinar can be a great way for you to meet other VISTAs as well, and I do see some intros going on in the chat, and there'll be a little bit more of that as we work through our time together today. We also think that this is an important opportunity for us to reinforce some of the really important details about your VISTA service. We know you've likely seen a lot of written information. Hopefully you've received info via email. You may have read some stuff on the campus. So it's possible we'll repeat some of the information you received because it is so vital, and we really, really want to make sure that you get those details while we're on today. And then finally, we really want to make sure that when we're done today, that you are going to feel really comfortable finding answers and seeking out more information to answer any specific or follow-up questions that you have. We really want you to leave with a good sense of where to find answers once we log off. All right, with that, Chris, you want to kick us off officially?
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to officially welcome you all to AmeriCorps VISTA. And today you will join a national service program with a very rich history. There are roughly just over 280 VISTA members beginning service with you this month. And currently just under 5,000 VISTA members are serving in rural and urban areas in all 50 states and in several U.S. territories and tribal nations. Volunteers in Service to America, or VISTA, has been fighting poverty and building communities for more than 50 years. Our strength comes from the talent, motivation, and energy of our members, like you. So let me thank you sincerely for stepping up to share your skills, your passion to serve our communities throughout the nation. It truly is an honor for me to welcome you on behalf of the VISTA program. Now, in the chat, please take a moment to type in your answer to this question. In what city or town will you serve? What community will you be serving? We have a lot of folks on the webinar today, so the chat is going to be moving quickly, but we just kind of want to get an idea, and just and it looks like everyone's doing it so far, but just a quick reminder to try to, when using the chat, send to all panelists and attendees, because we want to make sure that everyone sees where everyone else is serving, just to get an idea. It's virtual, we're on a webinar, we're not face-to-face, so it is good to kind of take advantage of the fact that we're all virtual to see where everyone is physically located. So we see the answers coming in. Great. I did catch a North Carolina.
Yes, see that. There was a Raleigh earlier.
Nice. My home state.
Baltimore. Woo! Hey, Jaden.
Great. So yes, please keep them coming. We want to see this, and we'll be using this chat feature a few times throughout the webinar. And we certainly know that based on your VISTA applications and your service placements that we have VISTA starting out this month in many different communities and in many different types of VISTA projects. I don't think representing all areas of the country, but the vast majority. There's only a few states here and there that aren't represented with everyone on this webinar. So now let's get a sense of how many folks have or will relocate to serve in VISTA. In just a second, a poll will open, and we want to just ask if you indicate yes or no in the poll. It's going to be a really quick poll just to get a little bit more information about you. You shared just previously in the chat where you're going to be serving, and we're curious if you relocated to serve or if it's your home community where you're serving. So we'll just give it a second. You should see the poll up at this point. And give it a few seconds. Don't see any results yet.
I was taking a long bus trip from Virginia to Wyoming. Wow. Good luck, Owen. That is big.
Okay. I haven't. Barbara, are you seeing the results at all?
I am not seeing the results.
We'll wait for it. It's probably just on its way in. See, as it might just be lagging up a little bit. But we do see some answers in the chat as well, like in Idaho to New York, quite a travel. Yes, got a few emails from Vistas saying having trouble attending this webinar. They'd be like, I am going to call in because I'm driving from Florida to Seattle. So I will be on the webinar. I will be calling in.
And welcome to anyone who's doing that, anyone who's in transit.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And safe travels.
All right. So, yeah, I am seeing results now. I don't know if these are popping up on y'all's screens as well. It looks like about 41% of folks are relocating to serve in VISTA this year, and about 59% are not. So,
wow.
Nearly an even split.
Yeah. Great to see. So thank you all. Thank you. And again, we'll swing back to that in a second. But moving forward, so together you are all joining thousands of VISTA colleagues around the country to fight poverty. As we just previously mentioned, there's almost 5,000 serving at this moment. We all do this by providing critical resources to local service organizations or government agencies. The VISTA program mission is to strengthen organizations that fight poverty. We do that by deploying VISTA members to serve in local community agencies. The role of the VISTA member is to support the organization's mission by providing solutions that enhance efficiency and build capacity by raising money, developing systems, recruiting volunteers, and really creating that lasting change. So by serving at a sponsoring organization, you are essential to VISTA's mission of strengthening organizations. So again, you see at the bottom of the slide, we have another chat question here. We want to know what is your project supervisor's name? So if you could just take a second to type that into the chat. We'll give it a few seconds as they come through. I know with so many vistas on the webinar, the chat can kind of get overwhelming, but we see some answers coming in. A couple, I think it's Corey.
Yeah, little question marks. Yep.
Yeah, I believe, but still good to know to have that idea. Great. And as they're coming in, some question mark. Tiffany, question. Great. Yeah, please keep those in. And we thank you for sharing that. And we saw some question marks. We saw a few mention not sure, and some I think or I believe it's this person. And that's okay. That's okay. You're still, a week away from your start date, and at this early stage of your service year, there may still be a lot of new information to gather. And as far as supervisor, typically your supervisor is going to be that point of contact, the person you interviewed with or who you've been in contact with, maybe through emails. But if you're unsure, we'll actually go through a couple steps in just a slide or two on how you can find out. Including details about your site and supervisor. So on this slide, you see the VISTA structure. So it's a graphic presentation of the VISTA program model with key partners that make your VISTA service possible. In this graphic, you can see that the VISTA program involves a lot of different layers that help support the work that VISTA projects are doing, as well as supporting you and your fellow VISTA members. So VISTA headquarters is located at the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS, much shorter and much easier to say, CNCS. And our office is in Washington, D.C. CNCS also has state or regional offices across the country. In those offices, CNCS staff collect proposals from local agencies to engage VISTA members. They approve VISTA projects. They approve the placement of VISTA members into those projects. Your state or regional office is a key resource for you, and you can reach them by email using the state abbreviation at cns.gov. So an example here would be if you're serving in Texas, the state abbreviation is TX, so you can reach your state office by emailing tx@cns.gov. That's CNS, like C as in Charlie, N as in November, S as in Sierra, cns.gov. And that's going to be a contact, as we just mentioned in that previous chat question. If you're unsure who your supervisor is, your state or regional office is going to be the contact point. They'll be able to shoot you back an email really quick, let you know who your point of contact is as far as your supervisor. So also in the graphic, you can see the sponsor organizations are listed along with your specific supervisor. Your sponsor and supervisor will be your day-to-day support and provide all the details on your project work throughout your year. At our VISTA headquarters, you will be supported by the VISTA Training Unit and the VISTA Member Support Unit, or VMSU in short, amongst other departments. The VMSU is a super helpful resource for questions, especially with regards to benefits, but also other questions with your VISTA service. Many of you have probably received emails from Brittany Madison, who's assisting with the Q&A on this webinar, and so she's in the VMSU. She's helping out with all the forms and will help you with the oath process as well. And to help make sense of all these organizations, there is an AmeriCorps VISTA Resources and Contacts document available that can be found on the Starting VISTA page. You can find it at the link you see in the chat panel that just showed up right now. It's also, so in the document that was sent this morning, I did see a couple in the chat mentioned that they didn't receive the email this morning with attachments. You should have. It could have gone to spam just because there's so many VISTAs on this webinar and we send it out. We check your spam filter. If you still don't see it, by all means, reach out to me. I can send you those documents shortly after this. But there's a resources and contacts document that we're referencing. That link is in the chat. It's also in the handout where you can find great resources on who to contact in what situation for what purpose. Okay, so on the next slide, so within that organizational structure that was referenced on the previous slide, we have VISTA members, project staff, sponsors, and CNCS staff all work together to accomplish these types of results that you see on the screen now. And in what you see in the last year, VISTA's raised over $194 million in cash and in-kind donations for their sponsoring organizations. VISTA's recruited, trained, and assigned over 700,000 community volunteers who collectively served more than 7.5 million hours. VISTA members made it possible for their sponsors to serve 2.4 million children living in poverty. That's in after-school programs and tutoring and assistance in food security. Programs supported by VISTA members engage 14,000 veterans and military families in service. And in a single year, over 8,000 VISTA members built the capacity of more than 4,500 nonprofits and public agencies. That's incredible. And this is just a snapshot of 1 year of VISTA service. We're so proud to support this work around the country and so happy that you all are choosing to become VISTA members. And looking at the next slide, so far today we've walked through the VISTA program mission and program model and talked briefly about the program results and roles VISTA members play in local communities. And next up, we're going to focus on your specific service. So as a VISTA member, you are making a 1 year, that's a full 365 days, full-time commitment to strengthen and support your community. You will strengthen, expand, and increase the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs. You will work on projects with staff and volunteers to build capacity in your project and community. Central to your VISTA service is a super important document that's called your VISTA Assignment Description, or VAD, another acronym, your VAD. The VISTA Assignment Description provides the overarching goals of your project. It really explains the objectives that you're working towards during your service year, and it lays out the specific activities that you will complete to accomplish the objectives. So all VISTA members have this VAD, this VISTA Assignment Description. And you can find it, if you don't already have access to it, or maybe it was emailed to you by your supervisor or provided a hard copy, but you can find it at any point, your VAD, in your MyAmericorps portal, in your member homepage. So that MyAmericorps, my.americorps.gov. It's important to know that your VAD was likely written before you were recruited or selected for your project. So be sure to check in with your supervisor, especially next week, especially in your first week of service, and talk about what has developed and what the current needs of your VISTA project are. Because VADs are written pretty far in advance of your arrival at your project. So it's very common that members and supervisors talk through it in those first couple of weeks, especially to maybe update, make a few quick changes here and there at the start of your service year so that you can work to the best goals going forward. And when we meet again on next Tuesday's webinar on your first day of service, we'll go into more detail about capacity building in general and the unique nature of your VISTA service. Please make sure and have your VAD by your first day of service, both for your supervisor, but also for that webinar specifically, because we'll go over it, and you can either have it saved or a printed out copy, whatever works best for you.
All right, so now let's move to the next item on our agenda and talk about the phases of your orientation to the VISTA program. Today's webinar is one part of a multifaceted orientation that all new VISTA members complete. On the far left of this graphic that you can see on the screen, you can see the different phases of your orientation, and some of the major tasks are in the blocks to the right of each of those phases. This structure is also reflected in the VISTA member orientation checklist. Again, that was one of the documents that you received via email, and you can find a link to that checklist in the chat box right now. If you haven't already, I really want to encourage you to open up that checklist, that PDF that you see posted there, save it, print it out, make it your friend, and really keep it close at hand over the next week or two. That checklist is a great way for you to keep track of your progress through each of these phases, and as you complete some of the important tasks that need to be done this week and next as we're starting off your VISTA year. So the specific phases of your VISTA orientation include pre-service, which is obviously where we are now, your first day of your term of VISTA service, and in-service. So pretty straightforward conceptually, the different phases that you're in. It is good to know that we envision your orientation in VISTA as really an ongoing process. We don't think that orientation is going to be done when we wrap up our webinar with you next Tuesday. It's an ongoing process and will involve a number of people, a number of folks here at our VISTA office, in your community, and your sponsor organization. We know, no matter where you are in the country or what you're working on, that your position is going to be a complex one, and it really takes, it always takes a bit of time and effort to really get you up on your legs and started strong. So I want to talk through some of the really important elements of these first two phases of your orientation to help you move through those quickly. So as part of your VISTA member orientation, you are required to complete a few courses and tutorials online. And I think just based on some comments I saw in the chat, some of you have started working on those already. Thank you for doing that. If you haven't, just so you know, you have plenty of time. So we're gonna highlight for you what to do and really encourage you to get going on those. So the courses that are listed for you on the slide in front of you are found, you can link to those courses to complete them, on the Starting VISTA Service page of the VISTA campus, and that's at vistacampus.gov is the website. You'll see that. We'll repeat that multiple times today if that's not something that you're familiar with. Good to know that the courses listed here must be completed by next Tuesday. So you've got a good week, you know, a few days. Those of you who are driving across the country, hopefully you'll make it to your destination soon, and then you'll have a little bit of time to get these courses done as well, if you haven't had a chance to do it. I do want to note that the first course listed here, the Terms and Conditions of Service, that's actually linked in the portal, in the MyAmericorps portal for you. So you can certify, and you'll need to certify that you accept these terms and conditions in the portal. Super important that you look at this course and you accept those terms and conditions before Tuesday, right? It's the kind of the official thumbs up from you that you're agreeing to the guidance and the rules regarding service for VISTA. We know there's a ton to do in the next week, so again, I just want to encourage you to print out this checklist, keep track of your progress as you move through these different activities over the next few days.
Great. And in addition to the coursework on the VISTA campus that Barbara was mentioning, you also need to complete your onboarding forms. These include a direct deposit form for your living allowance, your federal tax withholding form, or W-4, your unpaid compensation information, and your end of service benefit selection. All of these forms are located in your MyAmericorps account, or my.americorps.gov. If you haven't completed these already, please plan on doing it right away. We need these forms to officially enroll you in VISTA and process your living allowance and other service benefits. I think Brittany just chimed in the chat as well for some asking if they weren't sure if they completed them all. If you haven't completed them all, you'll hear from Brittany. She'll reach out to you. If you have, no news is good news. That means you're all set. And there are a number of benefits available to VISTAs. And if you haven't already, please go through all the information available on the VISTA campus. There's a lot of information, especially in the benefits section, that is really helpful. And if the answer isn't there, typically there's a link at the bottom because there are a bunch of resources that'll let you fall down the rabbit hole and really dive into more information. And in just a few minutes, we'll also talk through some of your benefits and highlight at least the important aspects and details. And next up, let's talk about your first day of service. So your first day of VISTA service is next Tuesday, January 21st, 2020. You will start your first day at your project site. So you're expected to be on site that day. Those of you who are relocating to serve must be moved into your new place, or at least moved to your new area so that you could show up on site for your first day of service. If you are unable to show up on this date, or maybe if you're unsure where to go, Make sure you contact your supervisor or state and regional office immediately, and you can also let me know. You can respond to any of the emails from myself, Chris Hawks, and I can make sure that your state or regional office is aware as well. As a VISTA member, you will be serving in a professional work environment, and you'll really want to set yourself up for success. We certainly suggest you confirm your plans with your VISTA supervisor if you haven't been in contact for a while. Maybe it's been a couple weeks or possibly even longer if you applied a long time ago. So if you are unsure of the address where you need to report, we'd recommend contacting them. It also may be a good idea to confirm with your supervisor the exact time you should arrive on your first day, possibly the dress code of the organization, maybe the parking situation if you happen to be driving, or any other special considerations that might occur on any first day of new employment or new service or school. You want to check the commute time, or if there's any paperwork or identification that maybe you should bring with you. Just double check those details with your supervisor beforehand. And on your first day of service, you'll continue your orientation with your project site and VISTA headquarters. At your project site, your supervisor may have prepared a formal agenda for you and scheduled meetings or possibly other activities. Day one schedules can vary by project, so please check in with your supervisor about really what to expect and what to bring with you on that first day. Also on your first day of service, your supervisor will provide you with a fingerprint kit and instructions as part of the required VISTA background check process. Please note that you will need to use the specific fingerprint kit provided, and you will have 30 days from your first day of service to submit your fingerprints to VISTA headquarters. We'll go over the fingerprint process in more detail during next week's webinar on next Tuesday. And along with starting your on-site orientation with your project, also on Tuesday, again, January 21st, VISTA headquarters will also be presenting your second orientation webinar called Launching Your VISTA Service. We'll be back online with you for the launching webinar from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern. That's Eastern time, so it's the exact same time as this webinar today. And similar to this webinar, you will receive an email from VISTA headquarters with participation details. We'll include the link to join. We'll include any attachments or documents that might be helpful. And on next week's webinar, we'll go a little deeper into the VISTA program, your VISTA assignment description, as we mentioned earlier, and member benefits. We'll also have time again next week for Q&A. So if you're like me, where you have a chance to ask a question, and in the moment of time you are totally blanking, then as soon as the webinar or meeting is over, you think of a bunch, it's totally okay. You'll have another opportunity. Just jot them down and you can ask them in next week's webinar. You can also reach out to us at any time as well. We'll also, on next Tuesday, we'll administer the Oath of Service. To submit the Oath of Service form, you'll need to be able to log on to MyAmericorps, to your MyAmericorps account right after the webinar ends. So please be sure to have your username and password available on Tuesday. You know, it might be saved on your personal computer or phone, but on Tuesday you might be at your site and using a different computer, so you might just want to make sure you know your login and password so you can complete the oath right afterwards.
Great. So next up, we're going to just take a closer look at a critical piece of our program, and that is, again, the terms and conditions of service. I mentioned those a minute ago. We're going to just lift up some of the important pieces from those terms and conditions right now. So as you know, as we mentioned a little bit ago, there's the Terms and Conditions course posted on the VISTA campus to get you completed and get your thumbs up and ready to go by next Tuesday. The course covers the rules of participation in our program, what's allowable while you're serving and sort of on the VISTA clock, what is okay for a VISTA member to do. Again, just to emphasize, since VISTA and CNCS are part of the federal government, we are bound by a variety of laws, federal regulations, other guidance and rules around the work that we do as staff and that you do as VISTA members. So we want to make sure that you're just aware of some of these key pieces right now and from the first day of your service, and make sure that you feel comfortable in that role. So I hope that some of you have had a chance to complete the terms and conditions course. As I said, we're going to pull out a few kind of juicy highlights, things that tend to raise a lot of questions and are very sensitive in the next few minutes. If you've already done this course online, then I'm hoping this will just be a quick and easy review. And if you have not yet completed the course, then hopefully this will really draw your attention to some of the more sensitive bits when you get into that coursework. So to do this, Chris and I are going to walk through a few scenarios, and we're going to ask you to say yes or no, to give us your opinion about whether or not these activities would be allowable for VISTA members per our program guidance. As I said, we'll present several scenarios, and then we'll ask you to indicate that yes, VISTAs can, or no, they can't. To do that, you can just type in the chat. You can type yes or no, you can do Y or N, that's also totally fine. And here is the first scenario. I see a bunch of answers going into the chat already. So as a VISTA member, I can voice my political opinion using social media where my profile identifies me as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. So yeah, in the chat, I see a number of folks getting in their Ys and their Ns. There's an M. I'm assuming that means maybe. Good for you. It could be maybe it isn't. So yep, keep those coming. Get them in. I like it. It looks like a pretty healthy mix between yeses and nos, Ys and Ns.
Yeah.
It's moving pretty quickly, so I didn't count everything, but I like it.
Seems majority knows, but good healthy amount of yeses as well.
Okay, great. So again, please, if you haven't already contributed your answer, feel free to do so. We're going to go ahead and move on and show you the official answer to this scenario, right? So, so here's what's really great. As a VISTA, you can absolutely, on your social media profile, you can list that you're a VISTA member. We hope that you will, right? We hope that you'll be proud to be serving in the program and identify yourself. And you can certainly comment, you can share your political opinions, your personal opinions as part of your social media life. The thing that you cannot do, and it's a big, big restriction, is that on your social media profile or in any of the work that you're doing in your social media life, you cannot represent yourself as an official, right? As a spokesperson for AmeriCorps overall, as a spokesperson for VISTA, for the Corporation for National and Community Service, or for your sponsor, right? Those types of activities, those types of functions are not allowed. But the personal work, of course, in your social media, that is. We also do want to draw your attention to a fine restriction here, and that is that if you are working in your social media life, that is something that you should be doing in your own personal time. It shouldn't be sharing your opinions or doing any of your social mediaing while you're at your site or using their equipment. So please don't be updating your status, posting things, using the computers at your site or even the Wi-Fi network. It's just really important for us that you keep those things separate as you move forward. So that is the first scenario.
Great. So the second one, how about I can demonstrate in a political rally? So per VISTA's terms and conditions, are you allowed to do this? Again, just yes or no or Y or N in the chat, and we'll give it a few seconds to get everyone's answers in. Looks like from the start at least, it's mostly yeses. Give it another few seconds. I think I see one no.
Yep. So a big no.
Oh, okay.
And then
there's been more.
Yeah.
Please keep them coming. Please get your answer in, and we will move on to the answer, which is yes. So the majority of you got that correct. So yes, you can demonstrate in a political rally on your own time as long as you are not identified as a VISTA or perceived to be a VISTA. Now that latter part, the perceived to be a VISTA, is pretty important, an important consideration at least, since some of you may be serving in a tiny small town or a local area where maybe you're not necessarily wearing your VISTA gear at the demonstration, but people happen to know that you are a VISTA member. So those can be tricky circumstances, and when in doubt about a specific activity, it's best to at least initially avoid it, at least before you can consult with your supervisor or your CNCS state or regional office, just to kind of get some clarification or approval on the aspect.
All right, next up, what do you guys think about this one? I can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I'm not identified as a VISTA member. It's kind of a compound scenario here. Per VISTA terms and conditions, what do you think? Are you allowed to do this? Yes or no? Seeing a mix? Yep. Seeing yeses and nos? Yep. Nope. Different takes on it. Yeehaw, I believe, is what Owen is sharing with us. Lots of different takes on this. Okay. All right. Again, this is a bit of a multifaceted one. So here's the official answer, right? For this particular scenario, and this is important and firm in the world of federal programming. While you're a VISTA, you cannot raise money on behalf of a partisan political candidate at any time during your VISTA year, right? That means even off duty. This is a restriction that we all have as federal government employees and as federal program participants, that for the time in which we are committed to this federal program, we cannot do this thing. We cannot raise money for a partisan political candidate. Doesn't matter if you're off duty, as I said, doesn't matter if you're not identified with VISTA, it's just a no. And the reason this is a hard no is because of something called the Hatch Act, which is a federal law that governs some of the work, as I said, we do as employees and some of the service that you'll do as VISTA members. And it prohibits all fundraising for partisan political candidates. It's just a hard no. Now, I will say, on a slightly happier note, is that you can raise funds on your own time on an issue, right? Something that you care passionately about, as many of you indicated in the chat when we started this webinar, right? You care about homelessness, you care about environmental stewardship, you care about working with immigrants and refugees, right? So issues are a yes. That you can do on your own time. And of course, again, don't identify yourself, don't represent VISTA as you're doing that. So hopefully that takes some of the sting out of the hard no on the partisan political fundraising.
Okay, so next one. I can have outside employment and or earn additional income while serving as a VISTA member. So again, per the VISTA terms and conditions, yes or no on if you are allowed to do this. And most VISTAs have been getting this one correct, and it looks like that might be the case here. It was a semi-spoiler, I suppose. I don't know if it's much of a spoiler because it's about 100% yeses in there, and the answer is
dun, dun, dun.
Yes. So yes, you may have outside part-time employment while serving in VISTA, but we do include this question despite almost everyone getting it correct because we want to just go over a few of the key rules to keep in mind as well. So first up, outside employment must not conflict with your project service or service hours, nor can it conflict with any applicable law or VISTA program requirements or policies. So under no circumstances may a VISTA member be an employee of or contractor for the sponsor or project to which they are assigned to serve. Third, your supervisor must approve and agree that the outside work will not interfere with the VISTA project. If the work does interfere, the VISTA may be asked to either end employment or to end VISTA service. Only part-time outside employment is allowed while serving as a VISTA member. And lastly, you have to request and receive approval for outside employment from your project supervisor. There is an outside employment request form that can be found on the VISTA campus. If you can just use the search feature. I think it's the first option when you type in outside employment. There's a form that you can fill out. It's Yeah, I know it's another form. You have all these forms from VISTA, from your sponsor, but I promise it's a really quick form. It's a one-pager with just some basic information. You just have to complete that and get it to your supervisor for approval for any outside employment. The link has been shared in the chat if you want to access that right now to that outside employment form. It's also in our one of our attachments that we sent this morning in the helpful links. And okay, so terms and conditions review. So thank you all for your participation in those scenarios. And while the terms and conditions of your VISTA service contain a whole lot of rules, we know that these 4 issues in particular raise a lot of questions for new VISTAs. So that's why we wanted to kind of provide those for you just to get a feel. Again, we want you to feel comfortable as you get started as a VISTA, so please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out to your project supervisor or your CNCS state or regional office if you have more questions about any of these activities. And again, you'll need to complete the full terms and conditions course if you haven't done so already, and indicate you've completed it in your My AmeriCorps account, as Barbara mentioned earlier.
Awesome. Okay. So next up, we're going to jump into some of the benefits that you'll have as a VISTA member. Again, we want to just draw your attention to a few key items today because they are time sensitive, and we want you to be able to find a lot more of the details about all of this when our webinar concludes today and we direct you to the VISTA campus. So Chris and I are going to talk through everything you see on the slide in front of you right now. Again, we're going to pluck out some of the really key pieces. So on the VISTA campus, where you can get all the details, this is the page. It's just a screenshot as well as the URL, so you can see where the overview of all of your benefits lives if you have not had a chance to do this already. Good to know some of the benefits that you'll see here and that we'll be talking about for a few minutes apply to everybody. They apply to all VISTAs, everyone who's hearing us and seeing us today. Other benefits like the child care benefit may only apply to some of you. So that's for you to determine where you fall, but definitely some benefits like the living allowance are going to apply to everyone who's on. So if you haven't already, as I said, please sink this website into your brain and really dive in to get all of the details. And let's walk through some of the issues that we see a lot of questions about. So first of all, that number 1 item on that list and the thing that applies to everybody, the living allowance. From the benefits page on the campus, as I said, you can find more detail there. There are additional links at the bottom of this page as well under resources. You can see highlighted everything from, tips for how to live on the modest living allowance. There's a budget calculator. There's a calendar, so you can see exactly what the schedule is for distributing that living allowance, and you can also find your specific rate. I think it's really, really good here to note that, as you guys saw in the chat with your introductions, that you're serving all over the country. There are slight differences in the living allowance rates depending on your location. So if that's something you have not seen yet or thought about yet, please go to the site, click on that link and get that information. It is posted there and it's meant to help you at all times. So quick question here as we're talking about the living allowance. Does anyone know when you'll be getting your first payment, so your first living allowance payment? If so, can you type it into the chat? And no worries if you don't know the answer to this, right? Obviously, that's why Chris and I are here to give you this detail. Yep, I see a couple of folks typing in potential dates, February 7th, question mark, just some question marks, lots of possibilities there. I'm not sure. Yep, no worries at all. Thank you. And for those of you who did identify February 7th, dun dun dun, you are correct. So thank you for that. So yeah, the first living allowance payment will be scheduled and distributed on February 7th. It's good to know, and I think fairly typical, VISTAs are paid every 2 weeks on Fridays. And while this does apply to most VISTAs, right, the information I just said about your first date and your dispersal schedule, it is true that a small number of VISTAs are actually paid directly by your sponsor. So the payment, the cash that comes to you as your living allowance, doesn't come from us at VISTA, it comes from your sponsor directly. So if you don't know if that applies to you or not, then please put that on your list of questions for your supervisor. As I said, it's a pretty small number of folks, but it's important because if you are paid directly by your sponsor, then the exact timing and the way that that's going to work for you may be slightly different than what Chris and I are talking about today. So I want to make sure that you guys kind of know what your situation is going to be. So as you can see here, and I'm sorry to say that federal taxes are withheld from the living allowance. However, state taxes are not. And so that'll be something for you to look at as you get into your year and start looking at your living allowance and your financial situation. You'll need to figure out your level of responsibility for your state taxes. Not something I think this very second for you to worry about, but something for you to look at pretty early on in your year just to make sure that you're getting yourself set up correctly for your particular state. I really want to encourage you to reach out to your state tax office or your state comptroller for more details on how to do that in your particular area. You also may have VISTA leaders or other VISTA members who are near you or working in your area that can also give you advice on that as well. Good to know that your VISTA service does not qualify you to receive unemployment compensation after your service is over. And that's because while you're serving in VISTA, your technical classification is as a national service participant. It's not an employee, and you're an AmeriCorps member. So because you're not technically classified as a regular employee of the federal government or a regular employee of your project site, then the unemployment insurance isn't provided, if that makes sense, at the end of your service. As I mentioned, for those of you who are going to receive your living allowance payment directly from us, directly from VISTA, you'll be able to access your living allowance statement in the portal. And again, if you want, please be sure to confirm if you're being paid directly by your VISTA sponsor, you'll get those living allowance statements directly from them. All right, so a little bit of information there on the living allowance. Now let's get to the hardcore details about how you get the money. So for us to process your living allowance, obviously, we need to get your direct deposit information for your bank. And to do that, we need to collect a few key pieces of information from you, and we need to make sure that these are 100% accurate. So you can see on the screen some nice red and some nice attention drawn to the areas for you to pull if you haven't already when you complete your direct deposit form. You can see the routing numbers required for your account where you would like your living allowance deposit to go, as well as your account number. I really want to emphasize that if for some reason either of those are off, if there's even one number that's off, if there's something wonky about these numbers, then it's going to delay your living allowance payment, and it could be a bit. I mean, because we're in the federal distribution system, a problem with getting your direct deposit set up and getting your living allowance scheduled could mean a wait of 2 weeks or more to get you corrected and set up and get your money to you. So I really want to make sure that what you need to do here is clear and make sure that you can do it quickly and easily. If for some reason you're not sure and you really want to double or triple check yourself, you can call your bank or swing by a branch of your bank just to confirm that information if that's useful. All right, as I said, please double check this. We just want to make sure that all of that information is correct. Thank you.
Great. And then after successfully completing your service, you all are eligible for one of two benefits. That's the Education Award or the cash stipend. So the Education Award can be used to pay any qualified federal student loans or to pay for education at any Title IV institution, which is an institution that accepts federal funds. You will have 7 years to use that award, and you don't have to use it all at one time, so you can split up the payments. You cannot, however, transfer this award to anyone else. For the cash stipend, that amount, the $1,800, the cash stipend is paid out via direct deposit at the very end of your service. The most important detail to know is that if you are unsure of which benefit to choose, we suggest that you select the Education Award because then you have up until the end of your 10th month of service to switch to the cash stipend. Once you start service, you are not able to switch from the cash stipend to the education award. So when you choose the cash stipend, in other words, when you choose the cash stipend, it's a final decision. But if you select the education award, you do have those 10 months. You have some flexibility to make a change if you wish to do so later on, or you can just let it ride as the education award. More specific details regarding education award eligibility, institutions that may match the education award, and other things to know can be found on VISTA campus, as well as nationalservice.gov. There are several links, and again, that kind of goes down a rabbit hole where you can get all sorts of questions answered. And even if you've selected it and want to make a change, you can still make that change up until your start date next week on Tuesday. So if you're still researching this week and want to make a change, you can just log back into My AmeriCorps and change from one to the other. And then kind of related to that, the loan forbearance and deferment. So for anyone who has student loans, there are ways you can postpone repayment of federally backed student loans during your service year. If you chose the education award, you can request forbearance for your federally backed student loans, which means that you do not make monthly loan payments during your year of service, and you can request that the National Service Trust pay the accrued interest on your federal loan after you complete your year. Just be aware that the interest payment is considered taxable income at that time. Federal loan forbearance is not guaranteed, and you must initiate the process by submitting a loan forbearance request, and that's done in your My AmeriCorps account. You will be able to do this approximately a week after your start date, so like late January, using My Education Award link in your My AmeriCorps account. So you have all those, you sign into your My AmeriCorps, you're on your member homepage, you have all those links on the left-hand side. About a week after you start service, you'll have a link that says My Education Award, and that's where you can go to initiate that forbearance request. On the other hand, if you select the end of service cash stipend as your award, or if you have private student loans, you may request loan deferment. And that means that you apply directly with your lender, giving the reason of economic hardship. You may be able to have your accrued interest paid by the Department of Education in that scenario if you have federally subsidized loans that are deferred. You also may be able to have a portion of your Perkins loans forgiven. Loan deferment, similarly to forbearance, it's not guaranteed and may not be offered by all lenders, and you should check with your lender for specifics. So neither of these will happen automatically. You'll need to request them through the appropriate process, whether that's in My AmeriCorps for loan forbearance or with the bank that holds your loan for deferment. For more details on anything we just covered, you can go to the Ed Award tutorial, which is at that link listed on the slide, nationalservice.gov/resources/Ed Award. After you have officially started service, you can go to your My AmeriCorps account to submit your loan forbearance request with CNCS. Again, about a week after you start. Remember that it's your responsibility to submit the forbearance request and check on its status. At the end of your year, also important to note, but a year's a long time away, it's also your responsibility to submit any education award payment requests. So if you have the education award, you have forbearance throughout the year, and you want the National Service Trust to pay that accrued interest, you'll have to go into your My AmeriCorps account at the end of your year of service to initiate that request to pay that accrued interest.
All right, so next up we're going to take a look at health care benefits for VISTA members. The VISTA program offers two different health benefit options. One for VISTAs who have health coverage, so like private insurance or Medicaid, and the other for VISTAs who don't have health coverage. So only you know which of those VISTAs you are. If you are a VISTA who has health insurance or other coverage, then you're eligible to enroll in the VISTA Healthcare Allowance, which provides reimbursement up to $8,200 for qualifying out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. That's the official language. So you can use the healthcare allowance to cover things like co-payments for office visits, services or prescriptions, medications, medical supplies, as well as meeting your annual deductible. The allowance will not reimburse you for the cost of buying health insurance or paying monthly premiums. That's good to know. Now, if you're a VISTA that does not have any health coverage at this time, then you are eligible to enroll in the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Benefit Plan. This is a safety net plan that covers basic healthcare needs during your service. It should cover many basic services with very low copays for you. But it does have some limitations since it's a safety net program, and it does not cover pre-existing conditions. It's good to know there's no deductible for the health benefit plan as well, so that's another distinction there. Both of these options, so the healthcare allowance or the health benefit plan, also include limited dental and vision benefits, and both benefit options are free to VISTAs. So nothing would be taken out of your living allowance. There's no payment for you to enroll in these, no matter which option you choose. And as many other benefits, it's true that the health benefits only cover you as a VISTA member. They don't transfer to your partners or your spouses or your children. All right, so to receive either of these, you've got to enroll, just like with the earlier benefits and activities. We don't automatically enroll you in either of these because we don't know what your situation is, right? So we need you to say that. In about 2 weeks, 2 weeks from now, the end of January, along with many other communications that you've heard about today, you're going to get an email from the health plan administrator, and they will provide instructions for how to enroll, how to select which of these benefits applies to you. If you want to seek coverage through the health insurance marketplace, you can take advantage of a special enrollment period of 60 days. Just to do that, go to healthcare.gov to shop around, and you can see that right in the middle of your screen right now. Again, that's healthcare.gov. And you can look around at the different plans and see what subsidies you may qualify for in your particular situation. So again, please enroll in these during a special enrollment period, and you will need to get in touch with the marketplace to do that. All right, so healthcare benefits, that is obviously a big topic as well. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about public assistance and different programs that VISTAs may be involved with and receive, and how the VISTA service impacts those. So one thing that's good to know is that public assistance of different types may be tied to income or money that you're receiving. So if you are already receiving public assistance, then your VISTA allowance or any other payments you receive from the VISTA program should not affect the level of assistance you receive. And this is important for you to know and make sure that as you go in and work with your caseworkers or other benefits coordinators that they're aware of this as well. So VISTA should not affect the amount of assistance that you receive. Similarly, if you're going to apply for new public assistance benefits as a VISTA, then the living allowance you receive and other compensation should not be factored in when your coordinator is determining the level of benefits for you. The one sole and really important exception to what I just said is the SNAP program, formerly called food stamps. If you enroll in SNAP now or at any time during your year, so if you enroll now prior to starting VISTA or once you become a VISTA, your living allowance and other VISTA payments will be counted as income in calculating your eligibility and benefit level for SNAP. So big exception here for that particular public assistance program. If you are already receiving SNAP prior to enrolling in VISTA, right, so before this week or before next week when you start, then your benefit should remain unchanged. It shouldn't have an impact. It's just if you start from the beginning. So it's good to know public benefits are managed by state and local government offices or entities, and our office, CNCS in DC at the federal level, is not involved in how they're administered. So we just want to make sure that you have the information that you need to explain to the folks in your community and your particular agency, your caseworker, as I said, your benefits coordinator, so they know how the VISTA benefits are supposed to work for you. As I said, in about 2 weeks, you're also going to have access to something called a service letter that will articulate much of what I've just said and much of what's written for you on the VISTA campus. And you'll be able to use that letter if you are applying for public assistance as a VISTA member. You'll see something in the letter that cites income disregard in the letter, which is the official language to describe what Chris and I have just been talking through with you. Again, this letter will be super helpful for you. It's going to show up in the portal in just a couple weeks and will be a key tool for you as you look at available public assistance resources for you.
Okay, great. And moving on to leave benefits really briefly. So as a VISTA member, you have certain leave benefits available during your year of service. You have 10 days of personal leave and 10 days of sick leave available to you. But of course, make sure to read the VISTA member handbook regarding time periods you're permitted to use your leave. Additionally, you will be able to observe the national holidays that are recognized by your service site. So for example, if your site observes Labor Day as a day off, then you would also have that day off. However, you do not get excused leave for federal holidays that are not recognized by your site. So for example if your site does not give its staff a holiday for Veterans Day, you are also expected to serve that day, unless of course you request and receive approval for 1 day of personal leave on that day. You also do not get excused leave if your site is closed for several days or really for an extended period of time. Sometimes that example comes up over the winter holidays because in that scenario you would need to work something out with your supervisor to either still serve during that time or you could use personal leave, of course. But you would want to work something out. You wouldn't get the week off in that scenario. Your supervisor and you will monitor your time and attendance, and you will send any leave requests to your supervisor. That's a common question that comes up, especially next week on that webinar is about how to track your time. That's done on the project at your site. Your supervisor will go over that with you. That'll be in your on-site orientation and training next week. And moving on, other benefits. So there are other benefits available to VISTA members. As we previously mentioned, some benefits may not apply to you while others do. In this instance, what we have on this slide are relocation and childcare. So for those of you relocating, we got a glimpse of that in the poll earlier. If you're relocating more than 50 miles from your home of record when you applied to your service site, you may qualify for a relocation travel allowance and a one-time settling in allowance. If you are eligible for financial travel support, you should have already received communication from the VISTA Member Support Unit, or VMSU. If you did relocate more than 50 miles to your service site and have not received any communication in that regard, you can inquire about your eligibility status by emailing vmsu@cns.gov. And in addition, AmeriCorps VISTA offers a child care benefit to members who qualify. To qualify, you must meet specific eligibility requirements, such as household income limits, and you must be the parent legal guardian of a child under 13 who lives with you. For more information, more details, and to apply, you can visit AmeriCorpsChildCare.com. So that site is listed up on that screen, but it's also in the helpful links document. You can find it on the benefits page of the VISTA campus as well. So coming back, we see our agenda. I know we just covered a lot of information. As you've heard, as a VISTA, you will have access to a lot of benefits during your year, and we hope that you now have a better idea of how to find out more about those benefits. So hopefully we either gave you some answers or gave you some resources to be able to find answers in those regards. So where you can find more information, whether it's on the VISTA campus, nationalservice.gov, or the links there within, and also what action steps are needed to take in order to make use of them. We're going to take a few minutes right now to address some of the questions you've submitted in the Q&A. I know our colleagues Brittany and Khadijah are working rapidly to try to answer them all, but it seems like quite a few have come in, so they're trying their hardest to get to them. But we'll take a look at some of the ones that have come in, or some of the more common ones that we see in the Q&A from Vistas.
Great. Yeah, Chris. Hey, everybody. This is Barbara. I was scrolling through the Q&A just to try to get a sense if there were some frequent flyers in our question box. There definitely were a number of folks that were asking about VISTA gear, if you're going to be getting anything like a polo or a button, and if so, how much it would cost. So, Chris, do you want to answer that question for folks?
For VISTA gear, yeah, and I don't have the exact date. But you will hear from us about your VISTA gear. It should come, I believe, Barbara, it was going to be maybe March?
Yep, should come in about a month after folks are in service.
Yeah, you'll get an email about how to order your gear. You'll get all the information. But yeah, it's a 4 to 6 weeks, I think, afterwards, where you'll expect to receive that email to get your VISTA gear. And
it is free.
All free. All free.
Yep. A really good question that I see here that's worth raising is, for the living allowance and other payments, can the direct deposit information be changed after the service is started?
Yeah, absolutely. You can change that at any point throughout your year of service. In addition to that, that can include your W-4 information as well, in terms of how many allowances for taxes. You can change that at any point in your MyAmericorps account. The only thing, and it's a good question, because the only thing we'd mention or suggest is to try not to do it right around when a payment is expected. Just because so our payroll system doesn't get confused and if you change it at the last minute and tries to send it to the old one, try to do it at like the beginning of a pay period. That pay period calendar is available on the campus, where you can see where pay period starts. That's a good time to make the change. Or if you do need that last minute change to get it in, you may want to contact the VISTA member support unit to get that as well.
Great. There were several variations on questions about the education awards. If one question I think is useful is if the education award can be used to pay off existing loans. So existing student loans is what I'm assuming that question means.
Interesting. Good question. Federally backed student loans. Yes, absolutely. So you can use that education award amount. You'll get it as soon as you finish your year of service. If you've selected the education award, it'll be available in your MyAmericorps account. So you can use that to pay off federally backed student loans that you have. It doesn't have to all be used. Again, that's a common question that comes up. So, let's say, just for example, you have $3,000 in student loans. You could use that to pay it all off, and then you'd still have the balance left over to pay for future educational costs at Title IV Title IV institutions. But yeah, so as long as they're federally backed, you can use it, pay it off. One other thing, it's taxable in the year you use it. So you just might want to keep that in mind, that the income from the education award is taxable. But you can spread that out to different years. You have 7 years to use it, and it's in your MyAmericorps account.
Great, thank you. Scrolling back, Chris, there were several comments and questions trying to clarify a while ago when we were talking about the terms and conditions, the restrictions on what people can and can't do. So one question that I think is a great one and really want to raise up is, am I allowed to donate money to candidates or to causes? Am I personally allowed? And I believe the answer to that is yes, right? It's not your individual giving, it's you, what you're restricted from doing is raising money for the candidate.
Exactly, right.
Similarly, a couple of folks asked if there are fundraising activities like people will post on Facebook for a cause, or they may be trying to promote awareness about an issue, is it okay for folks to be engaged with that if they're in their social media accounts as VISTAs?
Yes, certainly, as VISTAs, especially as issues, but even for those causes, you just don't want to have that AmeriCorps VISTA logo and your social media profile as your main image when doing that. But yeah, certainly you can promote those on your own accord. And we certainly realize that that there could be gray area with all of these, and in terms of the Hatch Act and the cans and cannots. So by all means, if there's ever any gray area, if you're unsure, reach out. We'll discuss it, ideally to your supervisor, but if your supervisor isn't sure, your state and regional office is an excellent resource in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Looking through dental or vision, is that included with the VISTA Healthcare? Yes. Unless it's changed with the new year, I believe it was the healthcare allowance would cover up to $1,000 to reimburse for dental, and I believe it can cover eyeglasses, eye exam, plus glasses and lenses up to, I think, $200. Don't quote me on those exact numbers, but it's right around there, and you can find that information on the imglobal.com. That website is on our list of resources, as well as the helpful links, as well as on the VISTA campus.
All right, a couple of questions or comments related to outside employment that folks, it looks like one person at least said they had talked about their outside employment with their supervisor at their interview. Do I still need to submit the request form, the form that I think, Chris, you were talking through?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You still want to complete it, even if you've gotten verbal approval. You still want to submit that so that it's on file. Your supervisor will make sure that's conveyed or communicated to your state or regional office as well, just so that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. Again, it's a short form. It's really simple. If you've already received the approval form, it's less than 2 minutes of filling that out and handed it to your supervisor.
A number of questions about time, I guess, work time, work hours. Would I be allowed to work at home? Are there restrictions around that?
Interesting.
And my reaction to that is it really depends on your project and your supervisor. I think from VISTA's perspective, we at the federal level don't mandate anything regarding hours of the day, hours of the week, total hours served, physically where you are, any of that. It is the 365-day enrollment and commitment for VISTA is the big important piece for us at VISTA. But I think some of these day-to-day details really are going to depend on your supervisor and your particular project.
Exactly.
Any more on that?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it. I mean, it's you'll find out a lot more during next week in your on-site orientation and training. I mean, you're serving full-time, so you can expect full-time hours. That can range from, 35 to 40. I think the average is around 36, 37 hours for a VISTA, but it could certainly be a 40-hour week. In terms of working from home, that is not, it's pretty rare, although it can be improved in certain situations. There's some information in the VISTA member handbook for teleworking. But again, you can research that in the VISTA member handbook right now or check with your supervisor next week on those options. Let's try to get one more move on. I know Khadijah and Brittany are getting through these, and so some of the remaining ones will be answered by them. Do you see anyone specific quickly, Barbara?
I don't.
Okay.
I do want to acknowledge. I mean, I'm as I'm scrolling through these, and I'm sure I'm not. My eyes aren't capturing all of the questions you guys are submitting. There's some really specific and personal ones that we won't be able to answer for you. So that's why they're sitting here. I just don't want you to think we're deliberately not giving you information. There's just some information we don't know about your particular situation. So that's. I just wanted to say that again, because I hate it when people feel like, they're just looking at my questions and not answering them.
Yeah, very good point.
There were a number of questions about the fingerprints, I would say, and I know we're going to talk a lot about that next week.
Yeah.
So if there's anything more today you think is critical for folks.
Yeah, exactly. We go into a lot more detail next week on the fingerprint process, but it's you'll have 30 days from your first day of service to complete them. They'll be due on, February 20th for you all. You'll have a fingerprint kit provided by your supervisor on your first day. So the kit also includes a return label from UPS to send in those, and you're required to use that specific kit when you get your fingerprints. Hopefully your supervisor, or maybe you already are aware of a certain location to get your fingerprints. If not, maybe your supervisor is aware, like a local police station or whatnot. And we also provide a $25 subsidy in your first living allowance to try to assist with that, with any fees that you might incur. Sometimes some places will do it for free. But yeah, we'll go into more detail next week on that.
Okay, great. So I think let's keep going. I know we have a couple more things on our agenda before we ring off today.
Yeah,
If that's all right. So again, I want to really thank you guys for taking the time to put those questions in. And as Chris and I said, I hope we're knocking out a good chunk of them today. And as we said, we'll have another verbal time for Q&A like this on next week's webinar. We do have the email communication. We're happy to try to help direct you this week and next week as well. So I want to just turn our attention quickly to some of the online resources, share a few reminders, and then get into our closing remarks for today's presentation. So you have heard us talk about both of these websites a lot. I know you've seen they figured prominently in our remarks with you in today's webinar, as well as in many of the emails no doubt you've received from VISTA. So if you have not already, please, please, please be sure to bookmark these sites, add them to your favorites, whatever you need in your browser right away so that you can quickly and easily get to these immediately, quickly and easily. So the first one, of course, is the portal, or the myAmericorps.gov site. It is where you've heard all about the paperwork, all about the different assignments. It's where your VISTA assignment description lives. It is the portal, as its name indicates. It's incredibly important for you to start as a starting point. The second site, of course, is the VISTA campus, where the onboarding coursework lives, as well as the tutorials and many, many other delightful items. Please get into the VISTA campus early and often. It is an important resource for a number of reasons. In addition to those first courses and the initial work for you to get started, it provides other resources that can help you navigate your year, can help you find additional training opportunities, and really connect with others as well. So here's a quick look. You can see the learning resources posted on the slide in front of you, just to give you a glance, a sense of the breadth of information that's available to you there. Something that's also cool on the campus is you can also locate and reach out to other VISTAs. So you can see now there are two features on the campus that allow you to do that. One is the VISTA forum, where you can post questions or comments and just generally continue some of the dialogue that I know you guys have started on today's session. You can also access the VISTA map and find out where others are serving around the country. Again, really want to encourage you as you're getting settled in just to make a note and visit these places early and often. And so let's see, we have just a few minutes left on our session today, about 6 minutes. So one last reminder about the coursework and onboarding forms that are due from you this week, and be sure to use the VISTA member orientation checklist if you need any assistance if you're kind of a visual and need that guide to see from step 1 to step 2. It helps you keep track of your work as you work your way through the
pre-service courses and the forms, and ongoing into your early service coursework as well next week. And then finally today, we'd love your feedback on our presentation. So what worked well for you? How can we improve this presentation for future VISTA members? So we ask that you take a few minutes to complete a brief survey. We will use your input and impact as well right away as we complete preparation for our next webinar as well. And we certainly thank you all for sharing your feedback. It is taken into account for these webinars. And with that, we want to just revisit our objectives. So today we hope that we have started to build some new connections, put some faces to names at least, with the morning of Barbara and the Ravens, and I love the shout outs for the AmeriDog Paloma, and that we helped clarify some of the complexity of starting your VISTA service. We know this is certainly a very busy time. It's an exciting time, but very busy for you, and so much information is being sent to you or with links, and you having to do your own research. So we certainly hope today's discussion helped clarify at least some of the VISTA requirements and some of the benefits, and helped you, again, kind of know where to go if your question wasn't answered specifically. Hopefully you know where you can go to locate an answer. So thank you for joining us on today's webinar. And again, from all of us here at VISTA and CNCS, we thank you for joining the VISTA team, and we look forward to seeing you all again on next Tuesday's webinar, Launching Your VISTA Service. Again, that will start at the exact same time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll spend a minute or two answering these last questions in the queue, but everyone else, have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you all.